A mysterious signal. In the vast emptiness of space, a strange signal echoed through the cosmos, unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard before. It started as a faint whisper, barely detectable against the background noise of the universe. But as time passed, the signal grew stronger, pulsing with an unmistakable rhythm that seemed to beckon from the depths of the void. For 3,000 years, humanity had been forgotten, a mere footnote in galactic history. Earth, once a shining beacon of life and civilization, had been erased from star charts, its location and fate lost to the ages. The Galactic Council, in their infinite arrogance, had exiled the humans, deeming them unworthy of a place among the stars. As centuries turned to millennia, the galaxy moved on, dismissing humanity as little more than a cautionary tale of a species that dared to challenge the established order. But now, the signal persisted, drawing the attention of the Galactic Council and the myriad species that called the galaxy home. Speculation ran rampant as to its origin and purpose. Some dismissed it as a natural anomaly, a quirk of the cosmos that would soon fade away. Others whispered of ancient prophecies and long-forgotten legends, wondering if the signal heralded the return of a lost civilization or the emergence of a new threat. Amidst the growing unease, the Galactic Council dispatched the starship Vanguard to investigate. A sleek, state-of-the-art vessel, the Vanguard boasted the finest crew and most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. Its mission, to trace the signal to its source and unravel the mystery that had the entire galaxy on edge. Captain Talia Vos stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, her gaze fixed on the viewscreen as the ship sliced through the inky blackness of space. A seasoned veteran of countless missions, Talia had seen her fair share of the unknown, but something about this signal unnerved her. It seemed to call to her, whispering secrets from across the ages, secrets that threatened to unravel everything she thought she knew about the galaxy and her place in it. As the Vanguard drew closer to the signal's origin, the crew worked tirelessly to decipher its meaning. They pored over sensor readings and analyzed the signal's every fluctuation, searching for any clue that might shed light on its purpose. But the more they studied it, the more questions arose. The signal defied all known forms of communication, its structure and content unlike anything they had encountered before. Talia felt a growing sense of unease as the Vanguard ventured deeper into uncharted space. The stars grew sparse, and the darkness seemed to press in from all sides, as if the very fabric of the universe was trying to keep them from their destination. And yet, the signal continued to beckon, growing stronger with each passing moment. As the ship approached the edge of a long-forgotten sector, a sudden realization dawned on Talia. The signal was coming from a region of space known as the Dead Zone, a place where no ship had ventured in living memory. Rumors abounded of ancient battles and cursed worlds, of civilizations that had risen and fallen in the depths of time. The Galactic Council had declared the sector off-limits, and even the most intrepid explorers gave it a wide berth. But now, the signal drew them inexorably forward, and Talia knew that there was no turning back. Whatever awaited them in the Dead Zone, be it salvation or damnation, they had to know the truth. With a heavy heart and a steely resolve, Captain Talia Vos gave the order to press on, knowing that the fate of the galaxy itself might hang in the balance. As the Vanguard crossed the threshold into the Dead Zone, the signal reached a deafening crescendo, filling the ship with its haunting melody. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the signal fell silent, leaving only an eerie stillness in its wake. The crew looked to their captain, their faces etched with a mix of fear and anticipation, wondering what new horrors or wonders awaited them in the depths of the forgotten zone. Little did they know that the signal was just the beginning, a harbinger of a truth that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. For in the Dead Zone, a power long thought lost was stirring, a power that had waited patiently for 3,000 years to exact its revenge. And as Talia and her crew ventured deeper into the unknown, they would soon discover that the signal was not just a message, but a warning of what was to come. The Vanguard pressed onwards, guided by the fading echoes of the signal, its crew steeling themselves for whatever lay ahead. The weight of the unknown pressed down upon them, but they knew that they could not turn back now. The galaxy held its breath, watching and waiting for the outcome of this fateful mission. And in the depths of the dead zone, an ancient power smiled, knowing that the time of reckoning was at hand. The dead zone awakens. As the starship Vanguard ventured deeper into the dead zone, an eerie stillness enveloped the once-forgotten region. The crew watched in awe as they traversed the uncharted depths, the faces etched there with a mix of wonder and apprehension. Captain Talia Vos knew that they were treading on the precipice of an abyss, where secrets long buried threatened to resurface and reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. The dead zone had long been a source of mystery and speculation, a realm whispered about in hushed tones by spacers and scholars alike. Tales abounded of ancient civilizations that had risen and fallen within its borders, of terrible weapons and forgotten technologies that lay dormant in the darkness. But for all the rumors and legends, no one had dared to venture into its depths for thousands of years, until now. As the Vanguard pressed onwards, the scanners began to pick up strange anomalies, fluctuations in the very fabric of space-time that defied explanation. Talia ordered her crew to proceed with caution, knowing that they were treading on dangerous ground. And then, without warning, the ship's sensors erupted in a cacophony of alarms, heralding a discovery that would change the course of history. There, in the heart of the dead zone, lay a sight that stole the breath from every member of the crew. A massive fleet of ships, ancient and silent, drifted through the void, their hulls bearing the unmistakable markings of a civilization long lost. Earth. The ships were colossal, dwarfing even the mighty Vanguard, and their design was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek and angular, they seemed to radiate an aura of power and purpose, as if they had been waiting patiently for this very moment. Talia felt a chill run down her spine as she gazed upon the flotilla, a sense of both awe and dread washing over her. She had heard the stories, of course, of how humanity had been exiled from the stars, cast out by the Galactic Council for crimes long forgotten. But to see the evidence of their existence here in the flesh was almost too much to bear. As the crew of the Vanguard watched in stunned silence, a sudden transmission crackled across their comm system, a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of time itself. "Humanity has returned," it said, the words heavy with the weight of centuries. "And we have come to reclaim what was once ours." The message repeated, an eerie mantra that filled the bridge with a sense of foreboding. Talia and her crew exchanged uneasy glances, wondering what this could mean. Had humanity truly survived all these years, waiting in the shadows for the right moment to strike? And if so, what did they want? As if in answer to their unspoken questions, the fleet began to move, the ships shifting into formation with a grace and precision that defied their age. The Vanguard found itself caught in the midst of the Armada, a tiny speck amidst a sea of metal and might. And then, without warning, the ships began to power up their weapons, the energy signatures flickering to life like a swarm of angry fireflies. Talia knew that they were outmatched and outgunned, that to fight would be suicide. She ordered her crew to stand down, hoping against hope that the humans would show mercy. But as the seconds ticked by and the weapons systems continued to charge, she began to fear the worst. Just as it seemed that all was lost, a second transmission came through. This one a request for parley. The human leader wished to speak with the captain of the Vanguard, to discuss the terms of their surrender. Talia knew that she had no choice but to comply, and so, with a heavy heart, she prepared to meet her fate. As she stepped onto the transporter pad, ready to be beamed aboard the human flagship, Talia couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into the jaws of a lion. But she knew that the fate of her crew, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on her shoulders. And so, with a final nod to her first officer, she steeled herself for whatever lay ahead, knowing that the dead zone had awakened, and that nothing would ever be the same again. First contact. The transporter beam shimmered around Captain Talia Vos as she materialized aboard the human flagship, the deck beneath her feet thrumming with an unseen power that set her teeth on edge. She blinked, her eyes adjusting to the dimly lit corridor that stretched out before her, its walls lined with pulsing conduits and alien technology. As she stepped forward, flanked by two of her most trusted officers, Talia couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into the heart of a snake's den. The air felt heavy, thick with the weight of centuries of exile, and the unspoken threat of revenge. But she knew that she had no choice but to press on, to face whatever waited for her at the end of this long and lonely road. A pair of doors slid open ahead of them, revealing a vast chamber that seemed to stretch on into infinity. At its center stood a figure, tall and imposing, clad in a suit of armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. As Talia drew closer, she saw that the figure was human, or at least had once been human, its features obscured by a featureless mask that seemed to stare into the very depths of her soul. "Captain Talia Voles of the Starship Vanguard," the figure said, its voice a deep and resonant baritone that echoed through the chamber like the tolling of a bell. "Welcome aboard the Nemesis, flagship of the Earth Armada. I am Admiral Theron, Supreme Commander of humanity's last hope." Talia inclined her head, a gesture of respect that felt hollow in the face of such overwhelming power. "Admiral Theron," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at her gut. "I come in peace, on behalf of the Galactic Council. We seek to understand your presence here, and to open a dialogue between our peoples." The Admiral laughed, a sound that was at once mocking and full of sorrow. "Peace," he said, shaking his head. "There can be no peace between us, Captain. Not after what your council did to our people. Not after the centuries of exile and suffering that we have endured." Talia frowned, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. "I don't understand," she said, her brow furrowed. "The Council's records show that humanity was exiled for crimes against the galaxy, for acts of aggression and war that threatened the very fabric of our civilization." "Lies," Admiral Theron spat, his voice dripping with contempt. "The Council betrayed us, Captain. They used us as pawns in their games of power and politics, and when we dared to stand up for ourselves, they cast us out like so much refuse." He stepped forward, his armor whirring and clanking with each step. "But we did not die, Captain. We did not fade away into the darkness. We survived, and we planned, and we waited for the day when we could return to the stars and take back what was rightfully ours." Talia felt a chill run down her spine at the Admiral's words, a sense of dread washing over her like a cold wind. "And what do you intend to do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is your plan?" The Admiral's mask seemed to smile, a cruel and terrible thing that made Talia's blood run cold. "Our plan, Captain, is to reclaim our birthright, to take back the worlds that were stolen from us, and to make the Council pay for their crimes against our people." He gestured to the viewport behind him, where the stars of the dead zone glittered like cold and distant diamonds. "For 3,000 years, we have waited in the shadows, building our strength and biding our time. And now, at last, the hour of our revenge is at hand." Talia shook her head, a wave of horror washing over her at the implication of the Admiral's words. "You can't be serious," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "The Council, the Galaxy, they won't stand for this. They'll fight you every step of the way." "Let them fight," the Admiral said, his voice dripping with malice. "Let them come at us with all their might and all their fury. We will crush them, Captain, as they once crushed us. And when the dust settles and the fires burn out, it will be humanity that stands tall among the ashes." Talia felt a surge of anger and defiance at the Admiral's words, a fierce determination to stand against this madness and protect the galaxy she had sworn to serve. But she knew that she was outmatched here, that to fight now would be suicide. "I won't let you do this," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at her gut. "I'll stop you, Admiral, whatever it takes. The Council, the Galaxy, They won't go down without a fight." The Admiral laughed again, a sound that was at once mocking and full of pity. "You are welcome to try, Captain," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "But know this, humanity's revenge will not be denied. And when the reckoning comes, you will either stand with us, or you will fall." Revelations from the past. Captain Talia Vos stood motionless on the bridge of the starship Vanguard, her gaze fixed on the holographic display that hovered before her. The image of Admiral Theron, leader of the long-lost Earth Armada, stared back at her, his expression inscrutable beneath the featureless mask that concealed his face. The revelation of humanity's survival and their thirst for revenge had shaken Talia to her core, forcing her to question everything she thought she knew about the galaxy and her place within it. For centuries, the Galactic Council had maintained that Earth and its people were nothing more than a footnote in history, a cautionary tale of a species that had dared to challenge the established order and paid the ultimate price. But now, as she looked upon the evidence of humanity's enduring presence and the vast fleet that stood ready to reclaim their lost glory, Talia couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the story than the Council had led them to believe. With a heavy heart, she turned to her first officer, a tall, slender alien with luminous eyes and a face etched with concern. "Summon the senior staff," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil that raged within her. "We need to discuss our next move." As her officers filed into the briefing room, Talia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the difficult conversation ahead. She knew that what she was about to propose would be met with skepticism and resistance, but she also knew that they had no choice but to pursue the truth, no matter where it led them. "We have a decision to make," she said, her gaze sweeping over the assembled officers. "The Earth Armada represents a clear and present danger to the stability of the galaxy, and it is our duty to stop them before they can unleash their vengeance upon the Council and its member worlds." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "But I believe that there is more to this than meets the eye. The Council's records on the exile of humanity are incomplete, and I fear that we may be acting on incomplete information." A murmur of unease rippled through the room at Talia's words, as the officers exchanged glances of concern and doubt. Many had grown up with the same stories and legends about Earth's exile, and the idea that the Council might have been less than forthcoming about the truth was a difficult one to accept. But Talia pressed on, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "I propose that we split our efforts. Half of the crew will continue to monitor the Earth Armada and prepare for any hostilities, while the other half will delve into the archives and attempt to uncover the full story behind humanity's exile." She turned to her science officer, a brilliant young woman with a keen mind and an insatiable curiosity. "Lyra, I want you to lead the research team. Find out everything you can about the events leading up to Earth's exile and the role that the Council played in those events. We need to know the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be." Lyra nodded, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the challenge. "Aye, Captain. We'll leave no stone unturned." As the officers set to work, Talia retreated to her quarters, her mind racing with the implications of what they might uncover. She had always believed in the Council and its mission to maintain peace and stability throughout the galaxy, but now she found herself questioning everything she had ever known. Hours turned into days as the Vanguard's crew worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of the past. Lyra and her team pored over ancient records and long-forgotten archives, piecing together the fragments of a story that had been buried for thousands of years. And what they found was nothing short of staggering. Far from being the aggressors that the Council had painted them as, humanity had been the victim of a vast and terrible conspiracy. The Council, it seemed, had grown jealous of Earth's rapid technological advancement and the growing influence of its people throughout the galaxy. They had feared that humanity would one day eclipse them, and so they had set in motion a plan to bring about their downfall. Through a series of false flag operations and manufactured crises, the Council had manipulated the other races of the galaxy into turning against Earth, painting humanity as a threat to the very fabric of their civilization. And when the time was right, they had struck, unleashing a devastating attack on Earth's colonies and forcing the survivors to flee into exile. But even in exile, humanity had not been broken. They had bided their time, rebuilding their strength and waiting for the day when they could return to the stars and take their revenge against those who had wronged them. As Talia listened to Lyra's report, she felt a sense of horror and disgust wash over her. The Council, the very institution she had sworn to serve and protect, had been responsible for one of the greatest crimes in galactic history. They had betrayed not only humanity, but the very ideals they claimed to uphold. And now, as the Earth Armada prepared to unleash its fury upon the galaxy, Talia knew that she had a choice to make. She could stand with the Council and fight to maintain the status quo that had been built on a foundation of lies and deceit, or she could stand with humanity and help them to reclaim their rightful place among the stars. It was a decision that weighed heavily upon her, but in the end, she knew that there was only one path she could take. With a heavy heart, she gave the order to set a course for the heart of the Council's territory, knowing that the fate of the galaxy would be decided in the battles to come. As the vanguard raced through the stars, Talia could only hope that they would be in time to prevent the coming storm from consuming everything in its path. For in the depths of space, a reckoning was coming, and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. The reckoning begins. The news of humanity's return spread like wildfire through the galaxy, rippling outwards from the dead zone in ever-expanding waves of shock and disbelief. For thousands of years, the races of the Council had lived secure in the knowledge that they were the undisputed masters of the stars, the guardians of peace and prosperity in a universe that had long since forgotten the name of Earth. But now, as the images of the Earth Armada's mighty fleet filled every view screen and holographic display, that certainty was shattered like a pane of glass. Panic and confusion reigned supreme as the leaders of 100 worlds scrambled to make sense of this new reality, to find some way to hold back the tide of vengeance that threatened to sweep them all away. On the vanguard, Captain Talia Vos watched the chaos unfold with a grim sense of determination. She had made her choice, and now there was no turning back. The Council had betrayed everything she believed in, and she would not rest until they had been held accountable for their crimes. But even as she steeled herself for the battles to come, she knew that the road ahead would be long and hard. The Council was a formidable foe, with vast resources and a deep-seated fear of change that would make them fight all the harder to maintain their grip on power. And yet, as she looked out at the stars that stretched out before her, Talia couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and determination. Humanity had survived against all odds, had endured centuries of exile and hardship to emerge stronger and more united than ever before. If anyone could stand against the Council and emerge victorious, it was them. As the vanguard raced towards the heart of Council space, the Earth Armada began its own offensive, striking out at the worlds and outposts that had once been part of humanity's vast interstellar empire. The Council's defenses, long grown complacent in the absence of any true threat, were caught off guard by the suddenness and ferocity of the attack. Planetary defense grids crumbled under the onslaught of the Armada's advanced weaponry, while the Council's fleets found themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered at every turn. The humans fought with a savage fury that belied their long years of exile, their ships darting and weaving through the chaos of battle like avenging angels. At the forefront of the assault stood the Nemesis, the flagship of the Armada, and the personal vessel of Admiral Theron himself. Its sleek, black hull seemed to absorb the light around it, while its massive gun batteries pounded the Council's ships into scrap metal. As the vanguard drew closer to the heart of the conflict, Talia knew that she would have to confront the Admiral once more to try and find some way to end this war before it consumed the entire galaxy. But even as she prepared herself for that fateful meeting, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something, some crucial piece of the puzzle that would make sense of all the chaos and destruction. It was only when they reached the Council's capital world, a shining jewel of a planet that had long been the seat of galactic power, that the true scope of the Armada's plan became clear. For there, hovering in orbit above the gleaming spires and soaring towers of the capital, was a massive structure unlike anything Talia had ever seen before. It was a shipyard, a vast and sprawling complex of docks and construction bays that dwarfed even the mightiest of the Council's vessels. And at its heart, rising up from the center like a spear aimed at the heavens, was a ship that defied all description. It was a dreadnought, a vessel of such immense size and power that it seemed to warp the very fabric of space around it. Its hull was covered in strange, alien markings that pulsed with an eerie, greenish light, while its massive gun batteries bristled with a weaponry that made the Nemesis look like a child's toy in comparison. And as Talia stared up at this monstrosity, her heart filled with a sense of dread and despair. She knew that she was looking at the future of the galaxy itself. For if the Earth Armada was able to complete this behemoth and unleash it upon the Council, there would be no force in the universe that could stand against them. The fate of billions hung in the balance as the Vanguard and the Nemesis faced off against each other, two tiny specks of light in a vast and uncaring cosmos. And as the first shots of the final battle began to fly, Talia could only pray that somehow, against all odds, they would find a way to prevail. For if they failed, the galaxy would be plunged into a darkness from which there might be no escape, and the legacy of Earth and all its people would be lost forever to the sands of time. A new galactic order. The battle raged across the stars, a maelstrom of fire and fury that lit up the darkness of space like a second sun. The forces of the Earth Armada clashed with the Council's fleets in a desperate struggle for supremacy, their ships dancing a deadly waltz amidst the debris of shattered hulls and broken dreams. At the center of the chaos, the Vanguard and the Nemesis circled each other like ancient beasts, their weapons blazing with the heat of 1,000 suns. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Talia Vos gripped the arms of her command chair, her knuckles white with the strain of keeping her ship and crew together in the face of the enemy's onslaught. But even as she fought with every ounce of skill and courage she possessed, Talia knew that the true threat lay not in the Nemesis itself, but in the monstrous dreadnought that loomed above the Council's capital world. The Earth Armada's ultimate weapon, a ship so vast and powerful that it defied all conventional understanding of warfare. And yet, even in the face of this terrifying prospect, Talia refused to give in to despair. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let humanity's dreams of vengeance consume the galaxy she had sworn to protect. And so, with a final desperate gamble, she gave the order to break off from the Nemesis and make a run for the dreadnought itself. It was a suicide mission, a last desperate attempt to buy time for the Council's forces to regroup and launch a counterattack. But even as the Vanguard raced towards its target, its shields buckling under the onslaught of the Armada's guns, Talia knew that they had no other choice. And then, just as all seemed lost, a miracle occurred. From out of nowhere, a second fleet appeared, dropping out of hyperspace in a blaze of light and fury. It was the Council's reserves, the last desperate gamble of a desperate people. Led by the legendary Admiral Zoran, a hero of the Council's wars and a master of the art of space combat, the reserve fleet tore into the Armada's ranks like a pack of hungry wolves. The tide of battle turned in an instant as the humans found themselves outflanked and outgunned by this unexpected new threat. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Admiral Theron snarled with rage as he saw his dreams of conquest crumbling before his eyes. But even as he prepared to order a retreat, a second miracle occurred. The Vanguard, battered and broken but still unbowed, managed to break through the dreadnought's defenses and unleash a devastating salvo of fire into its unprotected heart. The explosion was like nothing Talia had ever seen before, a blinding flash of light that seemed to consume the entire universe. And when the smoke cleared, the dreadnought was gone, reduced to nothing more than a cloud of shattered metal and vaporized dreams. With their ultimate weapon destroyed and their fleet in disarray, the Earth Armada had no choice but to surrender. Admiral Theron, his face a mask of hatred and despair, was taken into custody by the Council's forces to stand trial for his crimes against the galaxy. But even as the Council celebrated its victory, Talia knew that the true struggle was only just beginning. The revelations of the Council's own crimes and betrayals had shaken the foundations of galactic order, and the trust and unity that had once bound the races of the galaxy together had been shattered beyond repair. In the weeks and months that followed, a new order began to take shape, one born out of the ashes of the old. The Council was disbanded, its members scattered to the winds, and in its place arose a new alliance, one founded on the principles of truth, justice, and equality for all. At the center of this new order stood Earth, the once exiled world that had risen from the ashes of its own destruction to claim its rightful place among the stars. And at its head stood Talia Vol, the woman who had risked everything to bring about a new age of peace and prosperity for all the peoples of the galaxy. As she looked out at the stars from the observation deck of her new flagship, the Phoenix, Talia couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at all that had transpired. The road ahead would be long and hard, and there would be many challenges and obstacles to overcome in the years to come. But for now, in this moment of triumph and rebirth, she knew that they had achieved something truly great. They had forged a new future for the galaxy, one in which the mistakes of the past would be learned from and never repeated, and in which all beings, human and alien alike, would have the chance to live in peace and harmony. And as the Phoenix set out on its maiden voyage, its crew ready to face whatever the universe had in store, Talia knew that she would be there to lead them, every step of the way. For she was a captain, a leader, and a guardian of the light, and she would never rest until the galaxy was safe and free for all who called it home.